What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Barbells and Trails Podcast. I'm your host, Bret, back with Riley. And today, we finally have our first guest of the year,
sir.
Brian.
Yay. Thank you for having me on today. It's great. I'm looking forward to it.
If you guys don't recognize Brian, it's because you missed our live stream in November. He was on our first ever live stream. It's still on the channel if you guys want to go check it out.
Yes, please do.
He was known as he was one of the old guys on that
true, yep.
live stream.
Yep.
You
Old
and
looking, young at heart.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm not denying that at all.
Yeah.
I've been around you enough that you are definitely young at heart.
Yes. Well, my wife tells me I'm an 8th grader at heart, so I go with that. I could do 8th grade the rest of my life
8th
for
grade?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably more to do with my humor, my 8th grade humor.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately.
Hey,
So
we are all, but boys at heart for sure. I feel like most of us, guys are.
Boys will be boys. That's for
It's-
sure.
Exactly.
That's what we. Yeah.
But it has changed a little bit since your last year. Today we're actually trying to do multicam. We had some technical difficulties getting started, but hey, we just went for it. We're here.
No fucking way.
Well, I need a sound engineering degree apparently, to figure some of this stuff out. But
We do need help. Anybody have any suggestions? Please,
Yeah,
please send it to Bret at his email.
Yes.
honestly,
Business
I would actually support that. But since you've been on, you did make it to the last live stream, which didn't necessarily go anywhere. But the first live stream you were on, we were at 106 subscribers. As of today, we're at 244.
Oh my God!
So
Hell yes.
Yes,
we're
sir.
more
You're
than
climbing.
doubled. We're
You are
climbing the
climbing.
ladder slowly but surely.
Uh,
And I would like to think that you and Josh and Freddie that night had something to do with it, especially with all the shorts that we were able to pull out of that 4-hour
Yeah.
live stream.
well, and Kelvin with his expanding upon what was it, Shrek and all that stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
that
Yeah.
was
For
another
that podcast,
another
that
popular
was a good
one.
That was a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, he
absolutely.
I told him about that. I was like, yeah, this short for some reason talking about Shrek animators and behind the scenes of the making of it is going kind of crazy at the time. A lot of engagement, a lot of views, and it just kept growing.
Everybody likes Shrek, supposedly. Believe it or not, I have never seen any of the shows.
Really?
But my wife, and she's a very picky cartoon person, she loves him.
Yeah.
Loves all of them. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
So,
Mike Myers. I mean, you watch that. See, he was a part of my childhood between Shrek and then Austin Powers. I mean, he was everywhere for me.
Yeah. Well, Saturday Night Live originally for me.
Well,
yeah.
I didn't know that. Let's just say my dad was watching Austin Powers with me at an age I should not have been watching Austin Powers.
Yeah.
I was 5 and I was watching that. And we only
Oh,
did
that's
it when my mom-
perfect.
we only
I
did it
would
when my
say
mom
that.
wasn't at the house.
Of course.
Oh yeah, father-son bonding right there. We're watching.
Absolutely.
I'm just laughing. I don't get half the jokes, but I think it's funny. It's not till you watch it till you get older and you're like, oh, whole new light. But no, it's a lot of fun. I'm surprised you've never seen it, but your son's 10 years older than me, so I mean,
Yeah.
kind of makes sense.
Tori's 33.
Yeah, I mean, he would have been 11 when that movie came out, so
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
might not have been interested in it as much as someone from our generations.
That's true.
I don't remember much cartoons for him at that age necessarily. By that time, he had gotten into PlayStation and all that. So
Yeah, makes sense.
he was into all that. So all the computer
Doesn't surprise me.
sort of things. And
I
stuff.
would have been too.
Yeah.
If,
Oh God, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Me too. I mean, unfortunately for me, you have to realize that when we played video games, that was at the mall. We played that at the mall,
that's true.
and
Like an
believe it or
arcade and
not, they
stuff.
had a very, I mean, it was like an arcade or whatever, and that's how I knew what Pac-Man or
Yeah.
or any of those. Defender, Asteroids, all that kind of stuff. I can remember playing Asteroids as a very young kid. That was the best. I loved Asteroids and stuff.
I feel like my dad, if he was born in our generation, he actually would have been interested in video games because he did tell me that he had a slight addiction to arcades back in the day, and he did love it.
That's
It's
what I spent a lot of my money
Yeah.
on and stuff. 25
Arcades.
cents at a time.
Yeah.
unfortunately. And then, like, I can remember going to the mall, and it'd be Christmas time or whatever, and my parents would leave me alone for a couple hours while they shopped or whatever. So,
Well, I guess I have to ask, did you ever play Pong back in the day?
what do you mean by? Oh,
Like the original, basically the
Yes.
first ever real
we
video
had
game.
it. We had that.
You had
We
Pong,
had,
okay.
we
I
had
wasn't sure.
Pong and stuff. Yes.
What year did that come out? Was that the 70s or 80s?
That would have been 70s. Absolutely.
It was 70s,
Easily
okay.
70s.
I
yeah.
couldn't remember. I knew it was
And-
somewhere in there.
And it came in different speeds. And so finally, I would play it all the time. So, and what I like to do was play Pong's double, because then it had two little things.
Two balls? Okay.
Well, not two balls. Two. You were playing. There was two of you at a time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so there was a way that you could, if you were playing them, if you were going really fast, where you would take that and it would go through the ball,
Uh-huh.
and then it'd make it fly off in a different direction.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so I was always basically my cousin or my aunt or uncle or somebody that would be playing with me or whatever.
That's cool. I mean, we both know what it is, but I don't think I've
never
ever
played it.
actually played it,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, it's
we
like the
actually
very
had that.
first version of what like Wii Sports became.
Yeah, right,
like
yeah.
basically Wii Tennis. It's the most, I guess, like at the time, groundbreaking, but the most not backwards, but primitive version of gaming. Like that. That was it. It was just a ball
So,
bouncing off a wall.
What
and,
was those little ones that you held in your hand and that you could play games and stuff?
well, I guess
had a
what
specific
what
name.
era are we talking about? Like 2000s?
Yeah,
Probably
90s and 2000s.
Nintendos, DSs.
The
Game Boys?
Game Boys.
Oh,
That's what
yeah.
it was.
Oh,
Game Boys.
well,
Nintendo
yeah, that
Game
was
Boys,
yeah.
yep.
So actually, when I was young, we had something similar, and what it was it was like football, and you had a field
yeah,
or whatever.
yes, yeah.
It had like it had many dots, I guess, across the field, but then you
I know
were the
exactly
main
what you're
one,
talking about.
and then you would go, and then at the very end, it'd go da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, something like that for
The
the
thing is,
touchdown.
I
and it
didn't
would drive
tell-
my dad nuts because I played it all the time while we were traveling
Yeah.
back and
wouldn't
forth
bl-
to
I
Florida or
wouldn't blame you, though.
someplace.
I don't think I told you guys, but my uncle actually brought an old Nintendo emulator when we went to Thanksgiving. So basically, it had all those really old Nintendo games, the old football games, like the
Yes.
Original ones that they would have played when they were real young,
Yes.
or like the old GoldenEye, like the really old Nintendo games.
Absolutely.
So there was at least a day for sure that basically one of the main things that all the adults did was just go back and forth playing like the original Mario and like all this stuff, taking turns on the main screen in the living room when we were down there. They were just playing video games
that's
the whole
great.
time on the old like almost Nintendo GameCube controllers.
Well, and see, so when my son was growing up, the most innovative Nintendo at that time was N64. So Nintendo 64.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yep.
we learned, of course, I learned all about Mario and all that, Princess Peach and Wario and
Yeah.
Luigi and.
So I mean, what would be the newest game? I wasn't expecting us to get on the topic of video games necessarily,
Right.
but what's like the newest video game you've seen recently to even compare to
I haven't seen-
anything
I have
you've
not.
used to
Or
play?
Now
played.
my son is a avid
video gamer.
person.
Yeah.
Big a time. I have seen him play a few things, but I have never, other than the Nintendo 64, I haven't played a video game. I actually haven't played an actual video game probably in 25 years. I mean,
Yeah, so yeah, I remember playing.
well,
the
maybe,
Nintendo
okay, not 25, probably 20 years. About 20
Wow.
years.
I'm very tempted to go grab my laptop right now, do a reaction like we did for Avatar, and have him see
Excuse
the
me.
GTA 6 trailer. Because so I actually was listening to someone else talk about it. You wouldn't necessarily totally understand with it, but they were talking about the trailer, and he's like, I did make a reaction video, and I kind of hyped it up more than I thought. And like, not gonna lie, it looks great. It really does. It looks amazing, but I wouldn't say it looked outstanding. Kind of like when we were last on with Kelvin, and he was telling me like the original Avatar was way better than Avatar 2.
I
because
remember this conversation
he was like,
with you too.
I just don't feel like the new one really kind of was anything crazy compared to other CGI movies today.
Well, and how as much as the original one
Yeah.
blew you away
Yes,
versus
yeah, exactly. And the
what's
thing is,
happened
I don't
in the
think
meantime.
that was necessarily a possibility. I
Right.
feel like the only next thing that's going to blow you away when it comes to movies is probably going to be like the first VR movie, like actual VR
Yeah.
movie. I think that's probably the next step where it's going
Right.
to be like the first one that's actually made that way, and you sit there with glasses and you're literally in the world. That would probably be like the
Yeah.
next big like holy shit movie. But I didn't feel like they were going to be able to kind of do that where it was that astounding on the new one.
I mean, honestly, when I was watching the trailer, the amount of detail they put in,
There was
it
a lot of detail.
like
there
even
is.
I mean, just locating lines and stuff, and looking at the poles, and there's literally just
The shadowing,
literally lines
the
coming down the
colors.
poles.
I'm
just like,
it's amazing.
holy
And
crap!
so the next game is based in Miami. Basically, they do different cities. They just call them different things. They don't actually call it like Miami. I can't remember what it's actually called for Miami because they
I
had an
don't
old
remember.
game that was in Miami.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a basically life-like replica of the city. Like it is basically down to the detail of a lot when it comes to the layout, everything. You're actually visiting these places. Like that's the funny thing is so many like GTA 5 was LA. There's so many people that probably know how to get around LA reasonably enough
Yeah.
just from playing a lot of GTA 5
Yeah.
because I mean it's actual like map views where buildings are kind of working your way around an actual city and it's a real life city. So the new one I have to admit does look amazing. It does look really good. I think though that there's definitely other games out there that in the future that are probably going to come out that actually look even better than that.
100%.
But also I guess you got to compare it to computing power because this is also an open world game. That next game that has that great resolution might not be a fully open world, so it won't need as much computing power, in comparison. But it is pretty interesting to see like where gaming's changed so much, even the past 10, 20 years, let alone when you would have first been
Well, you
shown.
know how I always look at it this way is this. So when I was a little boy, we had what they called a party line for our telephone and everything.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. Of course, my grandmother has passed away many years ago, and I'm going to tell a little story about her. She used to, she lived in a small town here in Indiana, and so they, back then, this would have been late 60s, early 70s, a lot of the telephone lines were not just one individual line for everyone. They had what they called party lines.
I know what you mean now.
Yeah, and so they would get on, and then they would make a phone call or whatever. But possibly your next door neighbor could pick up the phone right then also, and then they would hear you on. So they could only do one individual conversation at a time, but you could listen to the whole conversation, and unless they heard the click or whatever, which my grandma got to be a master of that.
Yeah.
She would sit in and listen to all these people's conversations and stuff.
What?
And so yeah, because so
I
me
didn't
and
know
my
that was a thing.
grandpa and my youngest uncle would be in the other room or whatever, and she would be like in the kitchen area, and she would be listening intently on whatever, and then we would be talking or watching TV, and I'm just a little kid, so I'm bouncing around, yelling, screaming, and everything, and she'd be like, "Shh, be quiet," and everything, and then me and my grandpa would just start laughing because we thought, and my uncle thought it was hilarious that she's sitting there listening to him, but.
I mean, I can't deny I probably would do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You have so much things that.
So people have always been nosy. It's not just now.
Yeah.
It's not just now.
I actually remember.
I didn't know that was
I
a-
don't know where I heard the party line before, but I don't know if it was in my class because
I'd never
we
heard of a
locate
party line.
we
Yeah.
locate telephone lines, so I don't know. If
Like I obviously know, and I did the same thing back in the day with like home phones, where if you have multiple, you can get on and listen into the conversation. That was like my version of it as a kid.
Well,
But
I'll be
yeah.
honest with you. I had a kind of a unique perspective on that both my parents worked for AT&T.
Oh, that's true.
Or back then it was called Western Electric.
Yeah.
That's how you had all the bells. You might have Southwest Bell, Indiana Bell, Ohio Bell. All these were, independent of that company or whatever. So they provided most of the communications for telephone and all that. So, it just makes me think back. I mean, you can look at it as a progression like this. You used to have telephones that were just a dial where you just sit there and you turned it and then it would click back and forth. From there, it kind of went to the touch tone dials. Like even if you're thinking about payphones, nowadays you don't really see payphones out much anymore. I mean, payphones used to be in every town, almost at every gas station. Just because if there was something
you needed to call somebody,
there was an emergency or whatever, you do that. So you at that point you had the touch tone phones, and then from touch tone, you started to get into the cell phone area or era, I should say. And so here we are now with cell phones, and what amazes me is that cell phone has more capability computer-wise and as a phone than the original computers that they sent.
NASA
astronauts to the moon. So
no, that's very true.
And that's just up until.
And that's the thing. That computer probably would have been and taken up as much space as my house. Hands
bigger,
down.
Much. It would be a humongous room back in the late 60s.
True. That's true. Probably multiple homes.
Yeah,
of at least my size.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen old video footage of it and stuff. So yeah, that's crazy because now it's in my pocket and it's 6 inches and that's it.
Exactly. Well, and that's just like if you think about. Even if you look back in old videos at the old cars versus the new cars that we put out today, it's just amazing how, in my short lifetime of just 58 years, almost 60 years, just the huge technology jump and everything, even as far as medicine. I mean, think of DNA research. We knew very little about any of that stuff back then. Now they've mapped the DNA and genome. So,
It's true. Like, a lot of that's pretty recent discoveries, at least when it comes to the human history. Yeah, like all of it's a blink of the eye, even in human existence, let alone Earth's existence.
And I mean, I just want you to think about this. So if you just took from the time from 1950 to 2000.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Just that 50 years versus 1900 to 1950.
Well, I don't know.
And
but
even before then. Yeah. I mean, before the Civil War to 1900.
That's true.
I mean, these 50-year spans of what technology changes and societal changes. I mean, think about it's very, even in the time that I have grown up, society itself
I mean, even if you even
changed.
look, I guess you could do the same now by even looking like when I was born compared to now, 20 years. It's changed a lot. But I mean, imagine the impact from World War I to World War II. Like that's basically 20 years. Yeah, roughly, a little more. Yeah, but I mean, and obviously, war causes innovation. So it's like imagine this stuff going into World War I. A lot of that was practically still certain technologies that we were using from the Civil War. World War I kind of caused everything to advance very quickly, and then let alone how it transitioned to the start of World War II and how everything changed. Like shit, we didn't have tanks until World War I, and even then they were terrible. By the end of World War II, the tanks we had were outrageous in comparison. Like there was nothing that could stand up against them, and their capacity and their damage and just everything. I mean, just thinking about it. And like the first machine gun was built during World War II, and technically one of the first machine guns is one of the most powerful, accurate machine guns still to today. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm blanking on the name. But if you put it up to some guns, like turreted guns today, it's still fascinating that we're also able to develop that then compared to guns today. It's wild.
But I don't know,
innovation's fun to look at. It really is.
That, and even if you, I don't know, even if you go back even to an earlier time and stuff and think about, I mean, supposedly I don't know, if you're back 10,000 BC or whatever, And, certainly there has been many movies over the years that have been made about reenactments of that time or whatever.
I mean, we
But-
were talking about it.
Yes.
like literally
And
2 weeks ago.
thusly, this is what, the doorway I'm getting ready to walk through and stuff was last night. I was reading, or I wasn't actually reading, I was watching TV. And of course, they're always coming up with finding new discoveries as far as archaeology and all that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so they were talking about one of our favorite subjects, Göbekli Tepe and Karen Tepe and stuff, which is, I guess, just
Sister
20
site,
miles
yeah.
away. Yeah, the sister site to Göbekli Tepe. And to sit there and think of them, this went back to almost, they dated it to be
12,000 years ago.
11 to
right?
12,000 years ago that they were building these structures when supposedly we were just hunters, gatherers, foresters, all that stuff. So, it's amazing that, a lot of the history that's now coming to light, that it certainly wasn't how we were brought up or how the information that was taught to me.
I mean, even literally and figuratively, more information gets unearthed every year. Like it is crazy. It just keeps opening up more doors, connecting more information that we never knew. Like that's the thing. There was probably something that they found 60 years ago that they didn't totally know what it was connected to or what culture or civilization that's like today. Because of more studying, they were actually able to be like, oh, this is from these people. Like even just stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's been so many more connections, and slowly but surely we still got a lot that we don't know.
Right.
But like getting a better understanding of like human history and past, it's slowly filling in those history books more clearly over time.
That's just like the thing with us in the ocean. We haven't discovered like anything in the ocean yet.
Yeah, what, 3% is
Yeah,
all we
something
know,
like that.
pretty much.
Yeah, I know. And
That's
what it
what's
covers, 65-70% of the earth or whatever.
crazy. Yeah.
So
I mean, Kraken has basically at this point been proven as an actual thing. Like, I mean, at this point, even the flood myth is at this point part of human history. There was some cataclysm, like it's basically guaranteed. It's in every culture. Like, there's a lot of things.
They
that
talked
old
about
stories,
that last time.
Yeah, like old stories that are written as myth or mythology or part of that culture's religion actually are probably stories from generations past that just got turned into those stories.
that's what
And
they
that's what's
said last
crazy.
night, that what we take is just as possibly the Greek mythology or whatever. I think over time they're going to come to find out that a lot of those things were based on true events.
Yeah, so there's true
Absolutely.
aspects to
Yeah,
these
for sure.
stories in some way. They might be, I guess, kind of what we would consider today like Hollywooded up a little bit, like by taking a story,
Right.
making it more eccentric,
Like
and
Perseus.
crazy.
And,
Making it a little more outrageous. Like that's most stories in the news today. I mean, it makes sense that those kind of do the same. It could have just been one dude that happened to figure out how to start a fucking fire before someone else,
Yeah.
and he brought it to another village. But they
Right.
came up with this story of this titan had the original fire and came and delivered it to us, and it allowed man to progress. It literally could have been a neighbor from 20 miles away that just happened to be somebody that figured it out, had a torch, and this group was like, what the fuck? Like, what are you like, what do you have? Like, how'd you do that? And he taught them to make fire, and he gave it to them.
Right.
Like, that literally could have been the origins for that kind of story. But it's funny that it always gets changed. Like, I mean, even if we talk about, like, imagine if society just disappeared and we're 100 or 3,000 years into the future, but society's basically had to revert. Technology got wiped out from what we have today, and they found remnants of an iPhone or computer screens and all this stuff, or maybe some stories were passed down from the survivors. Who's to say how they're going to describe it 2,000 years from now? If you talk to somebody that was around then, we'd be like, oh yeah, it's a computer screen, it's an LED screen,
Right.
as all this stuff is glass,
Right,
there's
that's
computer
what you're
systems
saying.
inside. How would you explain that to someone that does not understand the technology? You'd be like, there was this weird mirror-like thing where you could
Right.
see other people and talk. It was like magic. Like, there's not, if you don't have the science for it, there's no lack of, like, there's a lack of understanding. So it's like, maybe some of that could have been old technologies in certain stories and myths to explain some things that they had no real explanation for. So there's a lot of
Absolutely.
hidden details.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and as I was watching this show last night, I don't know, it always makes you think, why in the world obviously before 1950 and 1960, let's say, I'm just using it as a time reference, as that I was born in the mid 60s, that, a lot of our history and everything that was taught to us, they had to know that some of those events, some of those things were not necessarily an embellishment. It could very well been that those were made out of actual events. And, why did they take, just a certain way that they want to present the information to you and stuff? I don't understand why.
I know what you mean. That, it's like, why would you possibly hide some information when it comes to it, or kind of keep it secret? But I think part of it could be control. Part of it could just be maybe there is something they found out that would just change everything we thought about human history, or
I think they
like it's.
I'm without a doubt. I'm without a doubt at all that they absolutely, and I mean they by probably our military or government.
But even then, they might not know
that.
as much as we think. They might still be in the dark, but they don't want to admit they are. That could be a thing, because if they admitted they didn't know.
I think it's just the opposite. I think, and I've talked about this probably even on the last podcast, I think that our technologies for many, many, many things are far beyond. Like, it would not necessarily surprise me that we already have a base somewhere on the moon, even though they're talking about sending new people to the moon or whatever covertly. Why couldn't we have already did that, or even be on Mars as another possibility? That might be a little bit of a stretch, but within the next 50 years, those things are going to happen.
That's true. I think the secret
maybe
moon
sooner
bases might be a little of a stretch for me personally, but there is something to it where the military has technology at least 4 to 5 decades more advanced than what we know publicly.
Yes, probably.
That's the thing is, I think the main comparison I've heard that kind of proves this is the helicopters that they use to go secretly in, stealth helicopters that they used to kill Osama bin Laden. Those were secret helicopters that had not been mentioned on public record or public knowledge, but the only reason they had to let them know was because one fucked up and they decided to blow it up, so they couldn't reverse engineer that technology for that stealth chopper. And in all reality, that stealth chopper was built, I'm pretty sure, in the 80s, and we've had it for 40 years.
Right,
and
that's how a lot of them
in 2010. I'm pretty sure. So there's definitely stuff like they had cell phones or some form of communication device would have possibly been considered a cell phone like this somewhere.
60s probably.
I would at least say the 80s. They would have had when the first cell phones were coming out and there were bricks, there was somebody with a cell phone that was more like the size of probably an iPhone. And not saying that they were common or they were used all the time, but they had at least developed the technology to understand how it works.
Right. Well, and then with the advent of satellites,
exactly,
that type of communication, then
well, that's the thing. You think about some of those satellites, you don't realize it because you think satellite, you don't necessarily think of them super big. Some of those satellites are massive.
I know, dude.
They're huge. Probably my barn and my house combined plus. Some of those are ginormous, and then also to think about how some of them today could also just be pretty small.
Right.
Or just think about
now you can literally
stations.
say that's true, but you could also see Starlink, Elon Musk's satellite for you get literally look. It is just the lines of lights.
Right.
And people are
yes.
we being invaded? What the hell is that?
I have seen it a few
times. It's just satellites just chilling.
Yeah.
All in a row.
It's just a little bit different with how it does it. Yeah. Even as a kid, of course, we lived out in the country, and we lived in a wood, so it was very, very, very dark. So a lot of times what I would do is I would go to my back porch. We had a big cement pad back there. So I would lay down on the pad, and then I would lay and put my head on the step. And then I would sit there and watch just like a section of the sky. And then over time, Here you go. You'd see this little thing going across, nice and steady speed.
I remember doing that as a kid
and stuff. And of course, it was a satellite. And now, I know a lot of times, and you guys too, have to get up early in the morning. I'll go outside and smoke a cigarette, and as I'm up, I'm always looking up in the sky. And I finally figured out that about 6:10 every day that there's a satellite that goes right over my house. Sometimes it's just a little bit off. It looks like just a little bit, but it's same spot in the sky going in the same direction and all that. So here I was thinking I was going to have discovered UFOs or something military, and then I finally figured out it was just a damn satellite. Son of a bitch and stuff.
So I mean, we've kind of talked about this before slightly, but considering you are further in your journey through life than us at this point,
yes.
Do you have any like bucket list items that you've wanted to do like your entire life that you've even already done or still would like to accomplish?
Absolutely. I mean, for example, my current wonderful wife Valerie, her and I have got to travel. We've been together for the last 23 years as a couple. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to travel the United States. And in fact, if you go to our house right now, we have a map of the United States that's kind of with corkboard behind it or whatever. And what we do is every place that we visit together as a couple, we'll put like it has little hearts on it. That means her and I have been together or been there together. There's one, I have my own peg for different parts of the country that I've been to that she's not been to. And also she has hers. So if you look at it,
I've thought of
it's
doing something
it's
like
cool. And we have people
cool
all
to
the
keep track.
time.
Yeah.
And I actually, my wife and I went to Minnesota and traveled a lot of the Midwest, which it looked like if you looked at our map, we've been to the West Coast a lot. We've been to the East Coast a lot. South pretty decently, but hadn't been right through the heartland of the United States and stuff. So we got to do that trip this summer and got to add a few different locations that I've always wanted to go visit and things. So just meeting my wife and me being able to do the traveling that I want to, and even as I grow older, I mean, what I want to do, I basically went to a lot of the places in the United States I want to go to. I'm ready to go take on the world.
Yeah,
I want to go. Yeah, I want to go to New Zealand. I want to go to Australia. I would love to go see the Great Wall of China.
I guess what would be at the top of your list when it comes to going to a country other than obviously the U.S.?
This is going to sound kind of strange. I mean, there's a bunch of them that, I mean, Egypt would be extraordinarily interesting to go see the pyramids.
There's so many. There's so many that I would want to
China. I think this is going to sound a little crazy. I think I would like to go to, Russia.
Oh, yeah, we've kind of talked about that before. Yeah.
I would love to go to Russia.
I can't remember your I mean, I wouldn't
cool.
be against it, but I can't remember what your explanation is for why.
Well, for one thing, I mean, one of the largest areas that is occupied by men, but there's not a lot of men there, is Siberia. I just think that I've seen a lot of different things about Siberia. That in itself, with all the diversity with culture, all that stuff in Siberia, and for it to be so very cold, it gets extraordinarily cold there. But I guess for me, I would like to go to Red Square. I would like to go and walk around Gorky Park. It's just something I've always been interested in. I think another place that I'd really like to go to is Germany. I would like to go to Germany.
Yeah, but the thing is,
possibly.
I don't think I would really want to like visit Berlin or like any of those main cities. I would like to go in like some town in the middle of the mountains, just in
That
nowhere.
would
Kind of
be
like the
so
same with like
cool.
going to
I
somewhere
would
in
like
Switzerland.
to. Actually, I would like to do both.
Really?
Because
Yeah, I would do both too.
I mean, I would, but I think honestly, I would prefer. I'd rather go see the German countryside, go through a
Yes.
small
Yes,
town,
100%.
hit a pub. The city, I can find a city anywhere. Not saying each city doesn't have its own like vibe and culture and all that stuff too that you really get depending on where you are. But when it comes to like the really metropolis areas, it's like it just doesn't totally attract me that much.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think I don't know. I lost my train of thought for a moment.
Hey, it happens.
I don't know. Like I really did lose my train of thought
you're
for
good.
that.
I was gonna mention though. I think two things for me personally.
Oh,
that
I know
I'd
where
really
it's
love
now.
to see that would be big on my bucket list, both involving space. I want to see Aurora Borealis. I want to see. I want to see the.
I have
Northern Lights.
actually seen that before
You told me
here
about. You
in
told me about
Indiana.
that. That's crazy.
It's only happened a few times.
That's true. Yeah,
and that
I've
was a
heard it's
long.
possible.
That was 20. Because I remember exactly where I seen it, so that's where I lived. That was 23 or 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that's on the top of my bucket
But
list. that I
not
wanna see.
crazy like you see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
up
like
in
no, if I do it,
Alaska
I
or
kind of want to
something.
go all out. It's either like I'm going up to Alaska or I'm going like to Sweden
Yeah.
and like doing something like that. Because one, I think Sweden would be a really cool country to visit, anyways. But then also to experience that. But number two would just to be able go somewhere that's remote enough for specific locations around the world. And there's multiple places you could do it. There'd be places in the U.S. I could find, but to actually be able to witness the Milky Way.
Yes.
Like actually be able to see it.
Yeah.
Go up to like the observatory or something in Hawaii where it's like
Right.
there's no light pollution. You're up in the mountains and you just get to see the vastness of the cosmos with the naked eye.
You know what? Shockingly, one of the things I like about this show, it's called Survivor. So I know there's a lot of people who know what show I'm talking about. But one of the things they do a lot of times is, I mean, they're in remote locations throughout the world, and they'll show pictures of the sky and the Milky Way and all that, and they're just like so extraordinary. To be able to see it like that from the naked eye,
Yeah, that's
because we have so much light pollution around here. That
I mean, I'll be honest.
you wouldn't
I
be able to see it.
until I feel like only a couple years ago, I didn't think I actually realized that depending on where you are, you actually could see it just with the naked eye. When I saw those pictures, I thought that was because they changed filters on cameras, which they probably still did to allow more light to be absorbed, to allow like more stars to show up. And I know definitely in some photos they did that to be able to capture that and get as much as possible, but also just to be like, oh no, some of that you can just see with the naked eye. I never even realized.
By any chance, do either of you know what the name of the new telescope that we put up? I cannot think of what it's called. But
The Webb, Jordan.
Yeah,
yes. What is it?
That is it.
Something Webb, but
It's
Webb
something Webb, and
What is
so
it called? I can't remember.
I don't.
But
Yeah.
what about it?
No.
Or well, because didn't they show one picture or something, and it was something along the lines where it's like this one tiny pocket of stars, and like how far it is, and
how
then they
empty
explained-
they took the emptiest part
Yeah.
of the sky and took that picture.
Yeah, and how much in the actual what we would actually see from our site that makes up, and it's like, boop. It's like that's how much of the sky we're looking at right now, but we're just extremely zoomed in, and it's just insane, like unfathomable, like the amount.
Well, and that's what I
things
was
in
going
that.
to talk about. I was watching something about the new Webb telescope, and they were saying that, instead of just being able to take photos, they're taking it in infrared. They're doing it in a bunch of different spectrums, which they've never been able to do before, which is kind of a way for them to go even farther back in time
And
to see and stuff. So
I mean, Riley, I guess speaking of like bucket list stuff, what would be one of your biggest ones?
I mean, kind of what just Brian has been doing, just traveling.
Just travel in general.
Like, I mean, just
Is there anywhere like what would be on like the top of your list? I guess for something like that.
I don't know what would be on my top, but
Yeah.
like, I always wanted to go to just South America too.
Yeah.
You
Just
know what?
to
That's
see,
a
like-
good point. Peru. I'd like
Yes.
to go to
Peru,
Peru.
Yeah,
see the
that's same.
Aztecs, and maybe just like I mean,
True.
of course, not
for
going.
me, a more simple trip would be
Yeah.
Mexico. And
Yeah,
going
dude.
like to the Yucatan, seeing those pyramids.
Or just like
Yeah.
actually just like, of course, not going into the Amazon, just like actually seeing.
just seeing it.
Dude, that would be just, I think, amazing.
Yeah, that would be.
It would be, yeah.
It'd be wild.
It's almost unfathomable. I mean, because it's so lush and all that. I mean,
It's
even
literally
if
the
you're
wow
in
effect.
Florida,
Yeah.
it's not nothing
No.
that lush.
Nothing.
Well, it's not
nearby
a
is
jungle. It's
comparable.
not a jungle. A
Yeah,
tropical
the
jungle.
only thing I think technically in the United States it would be as crazy in comparison is just going to Alaska and just
See, that's
basically
another place.
90% of it, or more than 90%, is just wilderness and it's just forest and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
That'd be like the most comparable thing we have, at least in U.S. borders, because everything else is at least reasonably like even some of the big national parks out there. Like they're
Right.
big, but compared to Alaska, they're minuscule.
Right.
I feel
They
like
don't
it'd
even
be
touch.
amazing just to go to Alaska too. Like,
Yes.
And
I would
not
like to
saying
get to
I would want to
Alaska.
deal with like negative 40-degree weather, but
I would,
I would. It would be amazing. Or
I
even
mean,
like Iceland, like more random. But like,
Yeah.
I would love to go to Iceland
like,
and
just-
see stuff like that.
just the
I
thought
like,
of like.
by the
not-
way, I like the Icelanders. They're one of my favorite people.
I know.
Enough, Brett. Anyway,
I mean, just like the thought of just like the main transportation they use in Alaska is actually just snowmobiles.
Snowmobile.
yeah.
Well, yeah,
And
I mean,
that's
it'd
just
be
hilarious.
True. Imagine trying to get a plow down there.
Exactly.
Like at that point,
That-
shit, they should buy tractors with tracks. Honestly,
don't-
I'm
Well, and
surprised
just-
there's
I don't
not.
know.
Well, the only reason you want to know why they just wouldn't start. They just wouldn't be able
They
to
probably
start.
wouldn't start. Yeah.
That would be the scariest thing. Is like I think in general I could deal with cold weather. I could deal with living farther north and certain things, but Alaska is so extreme that literally when shit gets cold, it just don't work.
Yeah,
like
well,
that's the issue.
See, that's actually the one
heat.
thing. One thing.
doesn't totally do that. It might affect electronics just from overheating, but that's about it.
Well,
Other than
that's
that'll
the
work.
one thing with actually snowmobiles. I don't know about if you guys knew that, but like on the bottom, that's where all the heat actually distributes, and if it gets too overheated, it just shuts off.
Oh really?
So that's why you need enough, like at least 2 or 3 feet of snow just to actually just drive a snowmobile.
Allow all
Yeah.
that cool
you
air.
need
and
it. You need
high-
to just keep it getting cooled off.
I guess I never
Yeah.
realized
Yep.
that. So
I didn't realize that.
I guess why not? Let's break it down. If you had to pick one country to visit, what country would it be
Like right now.
for each of us? Yeah, if there's just one country you really wanted to visit, what country would do you think you would like to see? Like no cost, no expense, nothing. Just
If it,
Ooh, I don't know. Actually, that is such a hard question.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many. Oh, I know. I think I would, and I didn't mention this. I mean, the world is vast. There's a lot of places to go see that would be extraordinarily
of course.
cool.
Yeah, that's why that makes it hard.
I think I would like to go to Greece for some reason, because I've heard the Mediterranean, all that area.
That would be
Plus, think
so-
of all the history, and I mean, you're talking about completely
honestly,
different time.
I mean, you were going down the same rabbit hole I was thinking. I was thinking like England,
Yeah, that's what I was
Greece,
thinking. Yeah.
or Italy.
Yes,
I would probably say
Yeah.
Italy
Yeah.
because I think for me, I love the historical stuff.
Yeah.
So be able to travel Italy, enjoy the metropolis if I wanted to, also see
Yes.
ancient parts of Rome, go to these old abandoned
Yes.
cities, go to some random town on the
That's-
coast.
see, I was gonna
on the
say
edge,
Italy,
like near
but
Sicily,
yeah.
like, and then the food, like, oh, just all of it together.
Yes.
Italy or Greece would honestly probably be
Yeah.
up there if
Yeah.
I had to pick one country just to go see, just to see it all.
Well, and you know, the one thing that kind of made me even interested in any of that. I mean,
Yeah, what was your reason for Greece? I guess was it the history?
I had a friend.
That's good.
One of my friends, his family came from Greece, and him and his sister were first generation. So of course we
wow.
got to find out a lot of
A
stuff
lot of
about
information. Yeah.
and
That would
how
be
to
cool.
cuss and most of the Greek. Yeah, how
Yeah, all the
to do all
islands
that
and
good
stuff,
stuff. Yeah.
Well, I guess
Greece
what,
would be a good
what
one.
would be your choice then? I guess screw it. He's Greece. I'm Italy.
I guess I can't say those. Then.
Well, I mean, you can say it if you really want
See, I
to.
was going to say Italy. I was
Yeah.
like right there.
I was
like,
thinking somewhere in Europe. I mean, I was trying to
Yeah.
think if there would be like a country in South America or other countries I would like to visit, but I feel like the stuff that just has the most history packed into a small area.
Because I'm a history nerd.
Yeah, same.
100%.
And I think
Me
you
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little
So
bit.
we all were kind of thinking the same path.
But I'll tell you what, even going to a different place, something that would be kind of neat for me. I'm a little old for it, but it would be perfect for the two of you. Would be go and stay for like a year at a Tibetan monastery or something like that, and try to become one with yourself. For them to kind of go into those teachings.
Yesterday, actually.
Really?
Yeah. A little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
know.
At work, we haven't
okay.
been talking about it.
I didn't. What are you
No,
talking
you're
about?
like it.
Well, you got me at first there for a second. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
just
were
think
kind of talking at least along those topics. Yeah, there is something to certain places in Asia that I would love to see. Africa, I would still want to visit. I just don't know where I'd pick. Because I feel like
I do. I know
Really?
where I want to go.
Well,
That's what we should do. We should
Each continent?
Yes, do each.
Okay, so we got
continent.
all right. So we got Italy, Greece, Italy. Okay.
So that's Europe.
That's Europe. Okay,
And
Asia. Let's go Asia.
Okay. So I said China. I would go to Tibetan monastery for a year and try to be enlightened and stuff from all that. I think that would be neat. I think the simplicity of their life and their beliefs in that respect, I think that would be kind of cool.
Ooh, I'm
to
trying
kind of embrace that.
What are we doing here now?
Like we're
Each
picking
continent.
country in each continent.
So
like,
we're
that
in
we wanna
Asia
visit.
right now.
Yeah.
And that's where we're picking?
Like-
It's from Asia?
Yeah, if we had to
Yeah.
pick a country we wanted to visit in each continent. I was gonna say India, possibly because of its vastness and like the amount of complexity and difference throughout the
India would be cool.
throughout the country.
Or Japan
But honestly, I think
itself or whatever. Yeah.
why did that not
I was
even
gonna
pop
say
into my
Japan.
head?
I was
I
gonna
didn't
say-
like that didn't even bounce. The one that popped into my head for some reason was Thailand. I've seen some
Thailand.
people travel through Thailand and see
Dude,
stuff,
it
and
looks so beautiful.
it
there.
does look like a very beautiful country to visit.
I have been
Even though
lucky.
it's not big, I think it'd be a really cool
100%.
country to see.
I have been lucky enough to see actual pictures. Our youngest son Frankie and his wife Taylor went to Bangkok, so they've been there
Oh,
before.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, that'd
and
be
you can't imagine some of the cool pictures of the old, just all the old architecture and stuff from that era and stuff
No,
there.
I
It's
believe
really
it, 'cause
cool.
That's the thing. There is a lot of history in Asia too.
It's hotter than all
It's-
get out there.
I believe that.
so
Humid.
Like
Humid
yeah,
and hot.
it's
Mosquitoes.
like insane.
Okay, so let's go with Oceania then. So
No, wait, we got to do our rest of our continents. Come on,
yeah,
man.
Oceania
Oceania.
is new. He's old. Australia. Oceania is
I
now Australia, New Zealand. Is Indonesia part of it? They're basically
I
some
gotcha.
of the surrounding countries because they realized, naming a continent Australia is a little much when it is a country.
I
Yeah, they
gotcha.
changed it like when I was in high school, I think.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
have not ever heard that term for the Australians.
I mean, I think in general, it probably out of those, it would have to be Australia for me.
Yeah.
I mean, New Zealand, I've heard a lot for
I've
it being
heard it's
in
beautiful.
comparison,
I heard.
a tiny country compared to Australia. There's a lot of beautiful places.
They have
compacted
some
there.
very beautiful scenic.
I
guess
say,
I
I think I
I
might
don't
say
know.
Australia.
I think I would probably go with New Zealand on that.
Yeah.
Just because
Same.
the uniqueness of the place.
honestly would.
For
I
sure.
was the thing. If I went Australia, the one thing that only tipped me there, just because I found it really cool, is like some of those old opal mines towns. Have you ever heard of
Yes.
those?
Yeah.
Where basically it's
well,
towns all
gold and all
underwater
that too. Yeah.
or underwater. Sorry, underground. So like people's houses are underground,
Mm-hmm.
churches are underground. They're all carved.
It gets
into
hot
these.
there, that's for sure.
That's part
Out
of
in
it,
the
and two
outback.
is just because it's a mining town, so they had all these
Yeah.
like places. But I think honestly, if it come down to it, I'd probably be joining you guys with New Zealand. I just want to see those opal towns. I feel like that'd be really cool. All right, I guess we're all New Zealand boys.
Hey.
Okay, so let's do Africa next.
I was gonna say let's do Africa without Egypt.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I feel like we'd all be like, well, let's kind of go look at the pyramids and go
Yeah,
out
I
there.
would go to
So,
Egypt
so
100%.
I would say let's cut out Egypt from that possibility and just kind of change it up. I'm trying to think.
I'm getting ready to give you shocking news
Oh.
about Africa. Go ahead.
I mean, I think the easy choice would be South Africa.
I was gonna say South,
but
Africa,
I don't know. I feel like I would want to go somewhere a little more like random, like
Sudan.
Zimbabwe or something. I think I know what this fact is.
Do what?
yeah.
I think
Madagascar.
it's not a bad shout.
What?
Madagascar.
Oh, there you go.
I think I'd go like just random, like somewhere like Zimbabwe or something, like just kind of, I guess, more in the boondocks of Africa. Like,
Honestly, I just,
you know what I mean? Just, but I want to be able to just kind of be out in it, just
yeah.
out in the wilderness. And I mean, if I went South Africa, it's one of, I think it is the largest country in Africa, or it's one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm not sure.
It's been a few
moments
has a
for my
lot of
geography.
variety when it comes to geological aspects. But I guess what would you say, Brian? So we got a Madagascar, Zimbabwe.
Okay. And what did you think that the news I was going to...
There's more pyramids in Sudan than there are in Egypt.
No.
Oh, okay.
He does know me well and stuff for that part of it.
Well, I just said that last.
Well, he talked about it last week, but he mentioned Sudan, and I was like, okay, what's your fact?
Well, believe it or not, I have family that's from Angola, Africa.
Oh,
Really?
Yes.
How do you know?
Well, because I shockingly, kind of in a roundabout way, I'm related to royalty from Angola, Africa. The king.
Did a prince email you and ask for your credit card information
Actually,
from Nigeria?
No, I'm best friends with the prince.
You got scammed.
No, I
It's
didn't.
the old Nigerian prince.
Absolutely. No. When I was in Muncie,
Okay.
believe it or not,
Muncie.
in Muncie at Ball State as a student, and I became acquainted with, through another mutual friend, the prince from Angola, Africa. Him and I became very, very, very good friends. And his father was basically, his grandfather was the king of Angola. I don't know what his name is. Mm-hmm. Well, he's a Shambanda. That's their last name. I don't know any more information than that. But his father was basically the governor of Angola been like in the 1970s as much as I can kind of figure out, because I didn't actually meet Anibal until it would have been like the late 1987, 88, somewhere around in there, when I was at school. And so his dad was the governor there. His family finally got kicked out of the country because the communist rule took over. This would have been like in the 70s, early 80s. And then so they got kicked out. Him and his family, his mother, and he had 4 brothers and sisters, actually 3 brothers and a sister. And they moved to, they had to move to Portugal, and they lived in Portugal for about 3 or 4 years. The father, the governor, ended up coming to Ball State. He had actually got his education. It was like he got like a master's degree in the computers at the time or whatever. And so we got to, I thought he was bullshitting me too, until I got to talk to his dad. And once you talk to his dad, you would absolutely know that he was not BSing you at all and everything.
Wow.
Because he had a certain, I don't know, presidential presence about him. Now, he was just a regular guy here, but still, when he talked, you could tell that he was used to being listened to always. Yes. You could just tell by the way he talked.
Right.
And so it was very interesting. So
I wasn't expecting that at all.
So through him and I have determined that we will always be brothers. So I'm like his adopted brother. So that is my tie to Angola.
I was like, Where does he go with this? Okay.
Exactly.
So all right.
So,
Verbal relation.
Right. Like, yeah, we got blood work done.
No,
Did you do 23andMe?
No.
Like, wow, that's impressive.
No.
Like, mine was.
I mean,
boring.
I may have some African in
I
me
don't.
somewhere, but
I
don't
am
know.
100% European.
Yeah, I'm gonna say actually when I said that, that's true. When I did my DNA, I was Eastern European, and it was like 99.8% or something crazy.
I'm like,
it was
I'm
pretty
basically
strong.
split. You could almost split me 20 between England, France, Germany, and
Yeah, I was English,
I was German.
I'm missing one.
and we found out my wife was Russian
Oh yeah.
at
Yeah,
that
you told me
time.
that.
We
Yeah.
did not know that, but yeah, she
That's
had
very
a
interesting.
very, very
Yeah, I'm a little
strong.
Russian too, actually.
strong. Well, we always knew that she was like she had German in her and like Irish or Dutch or something along those lines. There's another one.
I
She
remember.
always
I remember we did that when I was like younger. We did
Really?
all our blood work and stuff.
Yeah, I just did my
I
23andMe
I
like 2 years
totally
ago.
forget. So.
Yeah. Well, you were here. I did it
Yeah,
last year actually.
yeah, I remember.
So okay, well I think this popped in my head when we were talking. So we're still going through our continents. We got
Oh,
we got
okay.
4
So
done.
we got Africa done. Yeah.
I would almost say let's do like Middle East as a option as well. Like if you had to pick a country in the Middle East when it comes to like that, or like even going up to like southern Russia up there, like basically just in the middle of the map. Because when people think Asia, I never think of those places half the time. So I thought we could do something along those lines. If there was just a place that you would think it'd be interesting to visit and actually see.
Well, I mean, just because it was right off the top of my head, I don't know the name of the city, but it's got the tallest building in the entire world.
Abu Dhabi,
Yeah, is that what it is? What country is that in?
AUE, United, no, sorry.
Arabic, United Arab Emirates.
AUE.
Yeah, I think
I
it
don't
is.
know
Yeah, United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, whatever.
what he said.
UAE.
UAE, yes, United. I had it backwards. The right letters.
Well, as you said, I was. And then
that's why I was
started saying-
confused. I was like, "Wait, what is?" I was like, "I think I got my letters
Just
mixed
because
up.
of that.
Yeah.
Just because it's a great big city out in the middle of freaking BFE
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, that would definitely be somewhere.
with the biggest damn building in the entire world.
I was gonna say
That
like,
they have
something
2
like
elevators in it
I think it'd
because
be
it won't
interesting
go
to
all
go
the
to,
way
like,
up.
Afghanistan or Pakistan would be pretty cool to see. Because I've watched like Yes Theory's videos on it, and they've spent time there, and it's like if you actually go to certain places where it's not a little rougher, there's the culture there is very, very cool, and the people there are honestly very, very great. And I'm like, something that you don't hear a lot about. That's why it's so cool to see those videos, is kind of get the inside of these countries that basically no Americans really travel to, and to
Right.
really see the history, see the
That's
people,
true.
to actually get a real understanding for the place more than what we just see on the news.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was really cool to see those, and it kind of opened my eyes to it a little bit. And the funny thing, though, that you brought up Abu Dhabi and all that stuff, I was going to ask if you had to pick an actual city that you wanted to visit in the world, what would you pick? Me personally, I probably would have picked Abu Dhabi or like Tokyo. If I had to just pick
Tokyo,
one city
100%.
to go visit, it would probably be between those two. But yeah, so that's why I'd probably say like a Afghanistan or something, is to kind of see the culture, actually feel the culture, actually see it.
Yeah, Afghanistan actually would be fun. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay, so I mean we only got basically one continent left, because North America don't really count. Antarctica is kind of out of the picture. There's only one country, quote unquote, when we come to continents. South America. Well, out of all the South American
Peru.
countries,
I'm going to Peru.
Yeah.
I'm for no doubt.
Yeah, I was gonna say
definitely-
I was gonna say Peru too.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that's where it was gonna lead.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Peru because
Now-
I want to see Machu Picchu. But I've also heard like Lima's an amazing city.
I just want
You got like the dunes. There's a lot you can do.
the
Yeah.
Aztecs
Yeah.
and all that too. Like,
That's Inca.
oh,
Aztecs, Mexico.
Yeah.
Pulling out my social studies card on you.
True.
Actually,
Well,
that is true. Yeah.
Yeah,
They were-
I got you.
I swear there was something else too.
I think you're thinking of the Olmecs. Is that one?
Maybe,
I think that one's more.
I thought it was
That'd be like Venezuela, I think.
something like that. Actually,
It's like I thought it was.
I'm not sure.
Those were the ones that built the giant heads.
Yeah.
Giant head statues, and that some people are like, there might be some lost history
I know there's
here.
so many tribes
because
in South America.
If you look at the heads, they show. Some people would say they show more African characteristics, or even Polynesian.
Right.
So they think that there's a chance that other people at one point had settled in that area. I think they were leaning more Polynesian, honestly, because
I do too. That's what I heard
sailors,
too.
Or sailors, sailors,
sailors and sellers.
But
Close enough.
I mean, we've all seen Moana. They're pretty good at the ocean stuff, you know. So I mean, it would make sense that like even Easter Island, the history of that, like that used to be a thriving island, and humans came through and just cut down every tree and left it. And it is crazy when you think about like the Eastern Island heads. There's a whole body to that statue.
Yes, you're just seeing the head of it.
Yeah, I didn't know that for a long time.
And well, I don't think they knew it until they started. Hey, let's dig this.
Oh wow, it's still going.
Yeah.
It just keeps digging.
Well, and that's funny that you would say that because, there is a myth that's going about that in a lot of the places where they built monoliths, the heads for the Easter Island, that these were all done by extraordinarily large people. It was not what we would consider giants. And you know what? That in every culture during those ancient times, all talk about that that these great big giant men came and built all these, even up into the one in London, or not in London, but in England.
Stonehenge.
And stuff.
I think. I don't know if there was.
I don't know about the pyramids, but other places.
I would
for
believe
sure.
that there's at least a human species that we haven't actually found that was naturally massive compared to us.
Well, they found this is something relatively recent within the last 6 months. They found skeletons up in Alaska of like a whole village of people who lived that were they were between 8 and 9 feet tall, and they actually have the skeletons for them.
Honestly, that doesn't surprise me. Jeez.
So
that's the thing. Is part of the reason why today, like the average height is 5'10". If you go back 150 years,
average?
Yeah, that's the average height.
The
average penis is 5 inches. So just everybody get their tongue straight. We are above average, okay, boys. Well, I don't know about Brian.
Brian's old.
Well, I'm not 5'10", but
that's the U.S. average. Global average might be closer to 6, but I think that's also going on male.
Maybe that's only males.
I think that
is males.
I have to take a short break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Restroom. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. We can wait real quick. We're back. I have no idea where we left off, honestly. We took a little
countries.
But we decided on Peru. I think that was it.
Yeah,
we were talking about the Giants thing. Yeah, that's what we were on.
Yep.
I do think because just recently, there's now 4 human species or 4 humanoid species that would have been alive with us at this point. What is it? It's obviously Homo sapiens. There's Homo erectus, right?
That's my favorite.
I know
Homo
you like
erectus. Yeah.
The Denisovans, that's like the newest one. That one was found in Russia. They literally built their genome off of one pinky bone. That's like it was literally like 2 grams of bone that they were able to figure out the DNA structure. I almost said the wrong word. What are they called? Europe. Neanderthals, right?
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know much about that.
I don't know.
Neanderthals, yeah. I'm blanking. I think I'm pronouncing it a little off, but that's what it is.
Neanderthal?
Neanderthal, there you go. Then there's another one. I'm blanking on what it is. Homo florensis, that's what it is. And it's literally Hobbit people.
Oh,
you know that there was Hobbit
told
people?
Me.
Yeah. They're straight up Hobbit people. That there was a species on this island.
So it's Noah.
makes a lot of sense now. No, I think he would be, at least off of his build, he seems more like a. I'm blanking on it again. My brain just shut off.
Whatever that name is.
Yeah, the European one.
I'm not going to say it. So
what is it? Neanderthal. There we go. At least his build, stocky, small, but just tough.
he's not even average.
He's below average for sure. But no, so like there's literally possibly this species that was like 4 foot tall. So it almost makes sense between the different species, and for some reason they think that we like just killed them all, and that's why we are the surviving species.
Well,
I don't think that's what it was at all.
You know
I think
what?
they died out. I think they were just as smart as we were in certain aspects. Like Neanderthals and other ones definitely had tools and creativity. For a long time, they were thinking they were just dumb, big, human-like brutes. And it's like, no, they're still like humans. And I think if anything, they kind of interbred, and Homo sapiens ended up outbreeding them, and they just got bred into us and disappeared.
You know, according to the actual some information that I've read about the genome, if you looked at it like this, the genome, as they supposedly thousands of years ago, was this large. And then after supposedly be about the Great Flood or whatever, it went down to about this much. As far as DNA variety, there used to be supposedly much more variety.
Oh, well, that would make sense. No, that would actually make sense. Because if you knock out all those other species, that lowers the gene pool massively.
Yeah,
of possibility, because it's like dog breeds.
Yeah,
like we're thinking about humans. They can all interbreed. It doesn't matter. They're all dogs. So it's like just like us, we're all humans. We can all mix breed when it comes down to it.
Now,
like I have more Neanderthal. Like I have like over 2%. I have a higher majority. And that shows because I also have a high European heritage, and there was a large Neanderthal population in Europe.
You know,
are you Neanderthal? Do you know? Probably. If you're heavy European.
So. I don't know. I have no idea.
We'll find out. Let me swab that or get your spit.
That's next episode, guys.
just sit
I am not giving up none of my DNA
for
nobody. No, I'm not doing it. You'll just have to check my records at 23andMe or whatever.
Yeah, that's where mine are. They know. They're going to use it for testing. It's all right.
Okay, so I have a question for you. So you guys have certainly heard of the story about Noah, right? And the ark, right?
Yeah.
100%.
So Noah basically had, as far as the original story that I heard, he had all the animals, right? Mm-hmm. And 2 of all the different types of animals. Yep. Originally, one of the stories that I heard was that there was only maybe 7 people that was on the ark, and it was his relatives or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 7 seems right. His
four
sons, his wife.
It was Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and then their 3 wives.
So 8?
They all had. Oh yeah, they did have wives already. Wives. Yeah, they did. I'm thinking of the movie on accident.
Well, okay. So
I was thinking of the newer movie for some reason that popped into my head.
Supposedly, what I heard in a story that I heard last night, that besides all the animals and his family, that there was actually more people than that. And if you think about it, if you tried to eliminate most of the human race, right, there would have to be more variety than just 7. Plus, they're all 7 of the same family, except for Noah's wife, but all the other people
and the other wives.
Well, and the other wives.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. We don't know what race those wives would be.
No,
that's true. That's true.
And the thing is we also think that there could have been one survivor, and that's the thing. If we take it for a total historical fact, which it could possibly be, we don't know. Like
we don't know.
I don't.
It depends on if you take the Bible in a literal sense. He could have literally been the last man on earth. Maybe because of all the other flood myths, that there were other people around the world that were possibly also saved or survived. It's hard to tell. Like that's the thing. Would it have possibly been a clean sweep, or was this actually maybe not necessarily? It could have had some biblical implications where Noah was a person, there was a flood, but other people around the world did possibly survive the
Well,
flood.
in the scenario that they said last night,
Because he was the chosen person. But
No,
that doesn't mean
now
that
see
he
that-
was the only one that lived.
well, but okay, so I'm just going to go by what the story said last night because
Okay.
I had never heard this
Like
this version of it before. So supposedly on the ark itself, there was a couple hundred people on there and stuff. As to, if you think about it, that would probably give you enough variety that you would be able to, basically start a different race out of those 200 people and stuff from that, whether that be said or not. Supposedly, from what the story said last night, it was Noah who received the information from God about all of the how to build the ark and all that. Believe it or not, in the story last night, they were saying that his father, Enoch, was the one who originally God had told him of what the impending
Noah would
flood.
do. Yes.
What the
that's
I
right.
had never ever heard that before.
I'm
And
guessing
so-
what you watched was actually over the book of Enoch. It's a book that's
They
not in the Bible.
started talking about that, and yes, the
It
book
was-
of Enoch.
It was removed.
And
There's
yes, that
weird
the
information.
stories are just a little bit different
Yeah.
and stuff with what they say. and
Enoch
everything.
book is also the part of the Bible where it does talk about giants and a bunch of the Nephilim and like the fallen angels breeding with humans.
Right.
Like basically what helped cause the fall of man for the flood to come. I think it's in the Ethiopian Bible. But it's not
Yeah,
anything else.
well,
It was one of those books that
It
just didn't
is.
get.
I cannot
put in.
remember. They actually showed it
But
last
then
night, but
also,
I cannot
I think I've also
remember.
heard that some theological scholars don't believe that as something that was actually initially a part of some of the stories. And
Well,
it had been written after.
what they did last night,
bunch of
that they
weird stuff.
thought that this added more proof to the story of Enoch, was that, okay, supposedly God had given him the information beforehand.
Okay.
He had been telling everyone, hey, in so many years, 50 years from now or whatever, we're going to have a great flood and it's going to take all humankind out. So part that they thought kind of reinforced that version of it was they found cities that had been there that were great big huge complexes close to where supposedly that area was. I can't remember exactly what country they based it out of, whether it was Iraq or
It would have been somewhere.
somewhere out in
the
that
Middle
area.
East.
But what they found was that they had great big metropolises, and they found them by accident when they realized that the people who had actually lived there, they buried it, knowing that the flood was going to come. That way it would be preserved, because during the flood it would be all have gotten destroyed. So they buried it for people to find it later on, like we have now. And so when they
Would that be a part of Göbekli Tepe? Was this the same thing you were watching?
Keturah
Oh,
of the, I think not Keturah.
Because-
Kura?
Göbekli Tepe is at this point they believe was purposefully buried, but they don't know why.
Well, and so was the sister place, the Kira or whatever that. I think Keturah. I can't remember. It starts with a K.
That is the thing. I
That's
think
my bad.
for me, at least with my biblical point of view, I think there's a combination of science and biblical history that kind of overlap. I think that's one of the better ways to look at it. I don't think you can take either one for its full facets, because there is a lot of truth, I think, in the Bible and actual history that was jotted down.
Absolutely.
So I think when it comes down to like something like the flood, especially talking about like Graham Hancock's theory and stuff along those lines, I think there was some crazy catastrophe that set humans back.
Oh, even
Yeah.
archaeologically
It's
speaking,
been
they
proven.
can tell that
Yeah.
there's been a massive
As
flood.
for Noah being necessarily the only living survivor, I don't know if that's possible. Now, was he possibly communicated by God to be prepared for the flood, to actually help bring back a better state of humanity? I think that could definitely be true. But I think that because I mean, there's stories of the flood and some survivor in cultures all around the world.
There had to be someone who survived.
There had
Here
to
we
be
are.
someone to also bring those stories. Otherwise, if there's only one survivor, there would only be the story of Noah. If you know what I mean. Like, if there's other stories of survivors in all these other cultures, literally on the other side of the planet, that's obviously not the same story as Noah, there has to be some other version of survivors from some cataclysm.
Yeah, and see,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
even though they were talking about civilizations back at that time, it was all over the world. All of them have said that there has been document from all of them.
200 plus.
Yes, all over the world there has been the Great Flood. So
that's like going back to the Bible, because it's the Old Testament to the New Testament, and there's that huge gap that nobody knows basically what happened between that time, because it's hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah, at least when it comes to Bible. Yeah, we could go back and.
So that's what I mean. Like, we don't really know, but what I believe is just Noah and his family. That's who was all on the ark, because God gave him just like a basically timeline, and
but I mean,
God even said that mankind is sinning and he needs to wipe out the rest of the mankind. So if he brought on people that's sinning, then there's no point of even flooding in my mind.
But that also, though, I feel like in that sense is saying that I doubt that there's that's like saying today there's some bad parts about humanity, but that's not everybody. You know what I mean? So it's like, to say that he picked one person, the only reason why I think he might have picked one person is because of like, I think I'm mixing up some of my Bible history now, because Noah was before Abraham, wasn't he? Okay, so what I was about to say doesn't make any sense then. I accidentally flipped some stuff around when it came to the timeline. Yeah. Okay, so my rebuttal there doesn't make sense, but I guess I don't know, because not saying it's not possible, but the part where there's all these stories that obviously have similarities but are so different in so many cultures and so many different remote parts around the world. Not saying that obviously the story of Noah is false. I think there is true facets to it, and it could be definitely. And
supposedly they found Noah's Ark.
Yeah, there is a lot of evidence pointing towards it, but maybe because he thought he was the chosen line, choosing before Abraham, and he was the chosen person that he was focusing on. There could have been other people, but he was like, I want this person in particular to make sure he survives. I'm going to tell him. Because there could have been possibly survivors elsewhere around the world, they could have just gotten lucky. You know what I mean? Like
they lived at the top of a mountain.
Or they happened to be on a boat when some stuff went down.
It's just the thing. It's just because it was 47 days and 47 nights, so it's just like up in the air. You don't know.
It is. And I think that's the thing when it comes to theological stuff and even questions of the universe and certain things. We won't know. We won't know until possibly we're dead and we find out it's real and we get some answers, or we just never will. Even afterwards, even if there's an afterlife and all this, we still might not necessarily know that information. Like, who knows? Even if we show up in heaven, they might not be like, by the way, this is the actual tutorial that was sent. This is the real script of like what happened, just to fill you in. Like, that might not even necessarily be a thing.
Right.
So I think there's just stuff that we can never know for certain, and that's why it's like you got to find your own belief with everything.
Let's look at it a different way. Let's take away the religious part of it.
Okay.
And the humanity part of it.
Gotcha.
What has to happen that a flood so catastrophic would flood the entire earth? What would cause that? I mean, not supposedly. I mean, this was done by God, but
so that's my
if you can kind of wrap your head around. Okay, so did that meant that within 47 days, both the polar ice caps melted, and that was the only way that the water would rise that much.
Water level.
Because think about this: if it rained for 47 days and it rained enough that it flooded the land, and we're just saying all it has to do is be, most of the land to be under 10 feet, because a person couldn't survive in 10 feet of water or whatever as such. So, what in the world? How much would it really truly have to rain for you to flood the entire earth
I think
in that vastness?
It's like when we say that, it's like, who knows? It doesn't necessarily mean that, let's say, the Himalayas were enveloped, but at the same time, nobody's living on the top of the Himalayas. Right. You know, so it's like most people in that situation would have probably lived on the coast anyways. So it could have been a massive flood and not have necessarily meant that the entire Earth just became a ball of water. You know, so it could be something where it's like basically, because who's going to choose at that point when life's already so hard to live in the absolute middle of nowhere in the mountains? People do now because there's convenience and you can. Right. But imagine back there, you're trying to survive. You're making it more difficult to survive if you're living in those harsher environments. So the likelihood of people living in a more low-lying place would make sense.
But you know what? The Inuits in Alaska have lived in that environment their entire lives.
The mountains necessarily.
No, but the fact that they could live in that harshness.
Oh yeah,
that's stuff,
true.
And thrive in that harshness and things.
But even they live on the coast because they hunt fish, and seals,
absolutely,
and stuff along those lines. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting. That's why it's like when people talk about like, oh well, the Big Bang doesn't proves God's not real. It's like, what if the Big Bang was God speaking creation into existence? That was him. What if a day, when they say the world was built in 6 days, the day doesn't have to be 24 hours for God. Like it could be like millions of years. Like we don't know. Right. I think it's very hard, and I don't think it's ever going to be as simple as putting two puzzle pieces together.
That's going back to like the very beginning.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Just like because there was no days in the very first day.
Yeah, it's like, and that's the thing. We're talking about an omnipotent Father that created everything.
Right.
Like a day for him is not the same as our minuscule existence.
Or just like what we know.
Yeah.
To be a day.
Yeah, it's like time is a human construct. It literally is.
Right.
So it's like when we say that, I think it's just a way to make it written in a more conceivable fashion. I think that was part of the ancient like biblical writers was trying to bring history and story and the story of creation into something that's understandable too, as far as they were aware of. So it's like, I mean, could it have been the Big Bang? Yeah, it really could have been, but it still could have been God that caused something like that to happen. I think that's something people like don't realize. Like when they say it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, not saying there wasn't rain, but was it just rain? Could it have been something like Graham Hancock stuff? Did God cause comet impacts to hit the ice caps that then melted and caused even the sea levels to rise very quickly? On top of that, you know, like you put like all of it together.
Yeah, I feel like there's some different wording in the Bible of different.
And it does depend on the Bible you read.
Yeah, that's because very true. I think it says rain, and then also it does say just God raises the water level.
Yeah,
it's something like
there's multiple
100% sure exactly what it worded.
But yeah, no, I mean he's right. So I mean, when you think about even let's say you watch, which you haven't fully watched, but like. You know the Graham Hancock story. Yeah. Literally within weeks to days, if we go back to that cataclysm, and let's say this is the one that's considered to be the biblical flood, and the one from all these stories, if asteroids hit the ice caps, you got 2 miles of frozen water melting, where you literally might have rivers that are 500-600 feet high and miles across of trillions of gallons of water rushing across landscapes and raising the global like sea level by 400 feet in a very short amount of time. And it's like if you do that, if you actually go down 400 feet, the amount of land that would have been at that level where possibly a lot of the human populace at the time could have been living all went underwater. And so it's like where we live now on the coastline was not originally the coastline. So like
that's
I said,
true.
like if people were living on the coast like we still do today, and there was a flood, didn't have to necessarily envelop the entire world to take out.
And you know what? I guess if you make a really good, valid point. I mean, so if you, for one thing, you have to look at. We don't know for sure, but we know that there was not billions of people living on the earth back then.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, now, even though we have the diversity of having people just about stuck everywhere on the planet and stuff, they probably
if there was a cataclysm.
Why would they have lived on the mountain? There wouldn't have been this, and it would have made it much more difficult on them also. So.
Even then, it's like imagine if something like that today happened. Let's just say the exact same thing. All of a sudden, very quickly, flash flooding, temperature change, the sea level rises another 300 feet.
Right.
Even then, even though people are so spread out, our population would go from 8 billion probably to a couple 100 million.
Right.
If that. And it's like, even then, that couple 100 million will be so spread out. And that's just like in an instant, let alone a decade later. More people will probably die off because of violence, disease, no medicine, all this other stuff. So it's like, if you go off the initial cataclysm, population just possibly got halved plus.
Right.
You go another 10 to 50 years later, it might still drop another 50, 60% more, where it's like it completely reset humanity.
Right.
And I mean, because just off that, even a solar flare, it's like, if we didn't have technology to deal with medical problems, guess what? People aren't going to be living to 70 no more. Like, we're not going to be taking blood thinners to help with heart attacks. If you have a heart attack at 50, you might just be done, and that's it. And if you survive the first one, cross your fingers, you don't got another one coming up.
Heart attack, Brian.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, I mean, I think it's definitely a very, very complicated subject when you think about it scientifically or theologically.
Right.
But it's always a fun thought experiment. It is. And that's why I think I like Graham Hancock stuff, because it also talks about history, or the possibility of history that we weren't ever talked about in school when it comes to things.
And that's kind of disappointing for me, honestly. I mean, I don't know. See, I've always had an interest in, the alien theory that, that certainly we weren't the first people possibly here or whatever. And it brings into some really complex scenarios, of things that could possibly, people religiously will say, well, there is but only one God or whatever, when truly that God was probably an alien, or he was not of this world. And so, being of not this world, then technically he would be an alien. And if you came to the people that were here at that time, and he had the technology that is far beyond what we have now, even now, he would be considered a god. And even as God would come back tomorrow, we would still consider him a god, because their technology is so much more advanced. But we have much more, I guess, ways of communicating our history, hopefully in the future and stuff. Think about this. Maybe the people who lived here before that time of the Great Flood, maybe they were technology bound. Who knows? I mean, maybe they had everything that maybe we had, but would a flood or whatever have destroyed every single remnant of every microphone, telephone, doorknobs?
I think you'd be surprised, because like I said, most of it would be in the oceans. The ocean disintegrates. History disappears in the oceans.
Well, the salt and all that, would, I'm sure.
So, I mean, even on land, there's been theories talking about like how quickly a modern city today would basically fall apart.
Yes.
Like, and if you go far enough into the future, literally everything is gone. And it's new, like it just becomes soil. Like that's like very long term. I don't know. I guess with the alien thing, that's the thing. I don't not believe in aliens. I think that the universe is vast enough that that's almost guaranteed that there's probably something else.
Right.
But I just don't think that the alien version of history, where like they seeded us or humankind or God is an alien. I don't know. That one I find that hard to believe, because I feel like if there was something that integral in the development of humankind, I think we would see them today.
It's just,
and I think that if anything, that most of the things we see now that are possible UFOs, I think the most likely answer that would make the most sense, especially now with disclosure, I find it more not disheartening, but harder to believe when the government says they believe in aliens, or saying it's aliens, and they don't know, because I feel like that becomes more of a psyop. Whenever they start agreeing, that's where it's like, I don't know, I think you guys are trying to cover something else up. I think a lot of the stuff we see today probably is just military tech that's very advanced, very advanced drone systems that most people don't know about, people catch sight of them and they think it's whatever, that they're just not going to bring up. I think there is aliens, and if they weren't sending anything, it would also probably be something similar to a drone system. I don't know. Like, it's just
like that one thing about just us humans thinking of what a word means. So, like, what do you mean, like, when you say God is an alien? Like, what do you describe an alien as?
Yeah, it's true. And there is complexity to it. And, like, word is complicated. Yeah. Like, that's throughout history. So it's like there could be something to that, and who knows?
I mean, that's the same thing as, like, what do you think a God is? What do you think a man is?
I think that's the thing. When some people, especially some, let's say, very feminist atheists would come up and be like, you think God's man, it's not a woman. I don't necessarily think of a guy sitting up on a cloud that's white. I don't think he's white. I don't even know if God himself is a physical being or manifestation.
I think
it's more of there's a feeling, and the reason it's called a father is because I think more of almost like a father's love, like that's part of it.
Guidance.
It's a metaphor.
It's like
the fatherly relationship.
That's what the Bible
with
says.
humanity.
It's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I think it's more. It's not a physical person. It's not a dude up there with a dick. I think it's more of that fatherly personality of caring, love, teaching, that thing that is more of a, I guess, technically a male.
Is it
stereotype? I guess would be the right word. I don't know, but you get what I'm. Yeah, you get what I'm trying to say.
That's just the same thing. It's
yeah.
Like,
what really bothers me is, think about this: that society has to somehow make it a male or female, or that it has to be even a physical being, because honestly, if it has it has the capability of making an entire world, I mean, what type of being would that be? I mean, that's not something that's unfathomable to any of us.
I think that's why it's so complex. We literally can't construct it, and we got to put it into something that
we can understand.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the easiest ways to put it, I guess. And that's just what our mind, for some reason, thinks of, because it's easier to understand. I think that's also why even the versions and pictures and depictions that Jesus ended up becoming white is also because it was easier for European Christians to relate to him as our God, our Savior, because he looks more like me.
Right.
He has blonde hair, or not blonde hair necessarily, but he has blue eyes, and his pigment
and
looks like mine, and all this stuff. Where in all reality, if you think of history, he was most definitely not as pale as I was.
No, absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about Israel. We're talking about those places.
Right.
No, it probably looked very Arabic, like 100%. So
he at least had much, much, much darker skin for sure.
Oh,
probably.
For sure.
Yeah, and stuff. And I mean, that's just.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Oh, I mean, that's just like going back to, I mean, that's like with people being like Jewish, because technically Jesus
was Jewish.
Jesus was Jewish. He was Jewish.
Right.
And his mom that gave birth to him, and his dad, I guess, Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph, yeah.
But they both were Jewish.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going back, just like where history puts him.
Christianity wasn't a thing until like over 100 years after he died. And like that.
Exactly.
He was not Christian. That's where it's like, I also hate that there is so much conflict between Christians, Jews, and Muslims, because in the end, we follow the same creator. It's all the same books. You just believe it's slightly different. That's the bad thing. And I'll be honest, I didn't know the differences between Muslim and Christianity for a long time. I didn't realize that they saw Jesus as a prophet. But then also it is kind of weird when you come up with Muslim Christian debates. It's like, okay, well, Muhammad didn't know Jesus. He came 500 years after him. How could he possibly have a say in believing if Christian was a prophet or an actual God, like God in human form? It's like, he wouldn't know. It was 500 years ago. How would I know anything? Like, that's further back than George Washington.
And it had less technology to know.
Yeah, information.
Scientifically, yes, to be able to come up with.
So it's like, what would he have known? Idea. And not saying Muhammad possibly wasn't a prophet, but at the same time, I mean, it's just, it gets real complicated. It's like, okay, but what about the teachings of people that actually saw Jesus, lived with Jesus, had writings about Jesus? Why would you say that all that stuff was falsehood and then create your own thing? Like, like I didn't know for a long time that Islam was younger than Christianity. I didn't realize that for a while. I think I knew that they were always at one another's throats, but I never knew necessarily that they came after. So it's like when you learn all that, it's like we're basically, in a way, three in the same, but there's so much conflict between us, and it doesn't make any sense.
And you know what? I totally agree with that. It is extraordinarily sad for our race for those things.
Yes.
Because whether you're any of those religions, you know the difference between good and bad. And basically the teachings are just so a simple
guideline,
a simple guideline for you to, you know, the what should be considered the norm for a person to act like, or whatever. That's a very poor way of saying it. I apologize.
No,
but I mean,
well,
very
that's
much
like
so.
Sorry to keep quoting the Bible, but that's like kind of like what the Bible is saying is, as Christians, we're supposed to be following Jesus' first steps. And a lot of people think that Jesus actually like when he was back on earth, he was just like really caregiving, shall I say.
Yeah.
But in all reality, he was just facts. Like he would say, I don't know how to even put it really, but like just straight to the point, like you need to do this if you want to do this. Like he wanted like just, let's just say he wanted to just burn a whole village down if somebody just freaking had, I don't know.
And I think that's the thing. A lot of people that don't study the Bible don't understand the also differences between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It almost shows growth in some form and a personality of God. Like I was listening to a podcast this morning with Tony Robbins talking to George Schenko. And they were talking about this, and he's like, yeah, my son was definitely more on the form of hellfire Christian, and being like, this is why we're going to burn in hell for this and all this stuff. And in a way, that was sort of how I was raised in certain aspects, and it honestly put me off of Christianity a little bit. And then you realize that, like, no, like the whole point of Jesus coming back is you almost see a difference where God realizes, like, this isn't the right way. We need to teach people to love. Love is the
answer.
Main. It is the construct of how we should hopefully live our lives to one another. It's
Give
basically
love a
the Bible
chance.
is where the golden rule practically came from.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's along those lines where it's like you see that change from a more angry, jealous God in the Old Testament to a loving, caring, just that kind of form of the father figure more.
Right.
Of like,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to try teaching you and leading you down the proper path. Like that kind of.
Yeah, that's like going back to like modern culture right now. Like, just say with all the gays and all the LGBTQ and all that, just like, I mean, of course I'm going to accept them as a brother and sister, but that doesn't mean I'm going to just like be okay with it. I mean, I'm going to say like, fine, you can do that, but I'm not saying it's going to be right, you know?
Yeah, I think that though is the part of free will, and even people will be like, well, why do? And I wasn't necessarily expecting us to get on a religious topic necessarily during this podcast, but I'm kind of down for it.
Me either. Yeah.
Like when people are like, well, if God's so great, why do babies die at birth? Why do babies get cancer? Like what is all this about? And I think if you look at it, and I've heard some people talk, and they're like, well, if you really want to get down to it and you go by the Bible, part of the reason why there is human suffering is because of the initial failures of Adam and Eve. We left the garden. He allowed us to use our free will to dispatch ourselves away from God to do our own thing. And because of that, we deal with disease, death, and all this other things.
So, you know, now this is, I'm going to take a big step into a different direction.
Okay.
If what you just said was true by that right there, and that it was Satan that came into the Garden of Eden and tempted him with the fruit or whatever. So basically, you know, Satan is always portrayed as a bad person, even though it says in the Bible that, you know, he was God's favorite angel or whatever and stuff. So if he went, so Satan went against God's will, but he gave human beings the chance of free will. Okay, so it would be just like, and this is really a poor comparison, so excuse me.
No, go for it.
If you took the monarchy in England, and the king was an all-knowing, you had to follow his rules and everything.
Okay.
And let's say that there was a group of English people who did not want to go that direction. And so a single person from that group said, you know what, if you come here, you could live and do things the way that you want to. You don't have to follow those rules or whatever and stuff. So I don't know. Like I said, that was going to be a really poor one. I knew it was. But basically what I'm trying to say is, Satan was portrayed as a bad person.
Okay.
He gave us free will. I mean, he gave us the.
I wouldn't say he gave us free will.
Well, I'm just saying he gave us the opportunity for us to have to make and suffer by our own consequences and decisions.
Yeah. I mean,
I think I do get what he's trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say
I
because
knew
the
that was
thing
a poor
is
way.
with like the thing. I guess the fruit of knowledge. I wouldn't
actual
say
devil's
that
advocate
gave us free will. I think we already had free will. We just lived amongst God. But I think because I'm trying to think, what's the best description of the apple and what it kind of caused? Like it allowed us to be temptation. Well, besides that, but I'm saying like after they consumed the apple, like it was the apple basically allowed us to be almost at that point self-conscious. That's why they covered up nakedness.
Afraid.
They did all this stuff. It basically allowed our brains to really fully see certain aspects of humanity, I feel like, in certain ways where we weren't necessarily supposed to know this stuff. Like at that point, I feel like we were.
That's the thing with what the Bible says is just like the Bible. God knows like what's going to happen. He knows like every hair on your head.
Yeah.
Right. So like, even if he knew that Eve is going to get the,
he can't stop it. It's kind of like one of those weird.
Exactly.
You could almost use it as a movie metaphor where you see time travel. It's like someone knows all these possibilities. What's going to happen? They know what's going to happen at the end. They know the result, but they can't change anything because they just got to let time and history do its thing. So that's like God knows because He created everything. God knows how it's going to end. He knows that we're going to be a part of new creation eventually, and it's going to take this path. But He's looking at it as a bystander, allowing all of history to take place to get to that point. And did He do things, and did He move chess pieces to make those things come about? Yes, because that was kind of a part of the all written story already. It's kind of weird. It's one of those weird time things. Like He pushed Abraham to become basically the father of Israel, and this was the bloodline that would become the new creation, become man. And it wasn't until after Jesus that it wasn't all about bloodline and where you were. You didn't have to become an Israelite. Christianity is where ethics and countries and cultures became unbound by God's love, and it was basically opened up to everyone. We are becoming the children of God together. It's not just one people no more. We are one people because we are basically in that end. We are humanity. We are God's creation. We are one. There's not divide between.
Did you hear that? Did you guys hear that? We're all the same.
We are.
We are.
That's why it's so sad to see so much violence and everything.
See, that's like going back to like everybody's like, so if God is so great and He knows everything, why does He let suffering happen? Like, why does He have? Why does He let babies get killed every day? And it's just like, even if He knew it's happening, but He knows like the end. He knows the end goal. So yes, He can let that happen, but it doesn't mean He doesn't love us.
Yeah.
God loves us.
So did God set us up for failure then?
I think
I don't
honestly at one point.
I guess it depends on what your success.
Failure.
What you would, yeah.
I would say it's almost He's allowing us to learn from our failure, or from our mistakes as a society, as humanity. He is allowing us to have free will, and we were probably a lot worse in the past, and we are still very violent. Like you and me have talked, history was a lot worse 200 years ago on the scale of violence and treachery that was around the world.
Right.
It just wasn't seen. We didn't have news. Today, I could go on my phone right now and I could watch so much terrible footage
of thousands,
within minutes.
Right.
And so I think we believe, perception-wise, that the world's so much more violent. I think it's not. I think it is getting better, and I think part of that is the journey of all of it. Some people, depending on who you talk about when it comes to like theological Christians, think that technically we are part of new creation. This is the beginning. The beginning of it was Jesus's death. This was the start, and it's working its way through, and we're still slowly but surely, in a way, ironing out the kinks. Because also when it first started, how many people were actually Christian? 25, couple hundred, like very low. And it is slowly developed and grown. And in general, Christianity's still the number one religion. It's probably pushing 2 billion today. And then technically, if you go with the 3 big ones that all technically follow the same books and teachings, if you throw Islam and Judaism in them, that number probably shoots up to 3 or 4 billion. I mean, when you think of all of Islam and stuff, so it's like it's getting better. Not saying it's great, but there's still always going to be terrible people, and I think that's part of the free will aspect. Is you gotta, the further you put yourself from God, I think the worse off and worse person you're going to be. I think that has something to do with it too. Like
you saying, like people are going to always be terrible. I mean, even everybody's sinned in their life. Everybody has done.
Yeah, there's no way you haven't.
You're right. So, but what I believe is, as long as you believe that God is your Lord and Savior, or Jesus is your Lord and Savior, and then you're good. I really think so. That does not mean just try to sin every day and just like, oh, God is going to do this. Yeah. God loves me. He's going to. No, you have to believe it. You have to follow it.
And I guess I have to ask, because I actually never do this. I wasn't planning on necessarily asking this on the podcast. But what denomination of Christian would you say you are? Because I don't know. I don't know what you were raised. I don't know what you consider yourself. He wasn't brought up Christian at all.
I wasn't. I didn't grow up in the church at all. Not early. Well, not even. I mean, I was an adult.
I really want to like put a title over me. I would just say I'm just Christian.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just didn't know if there was a more denominational side that you followed. I would consider myself now non-denominational. I was raised Catholic, and I think that was one of the issues that even my dad kind of implanted early on, and I realized that I don't like Catholics is because when you do look at it, a lot of cartel members, a lot of mafia members, a lot of criminals fall into that category because with how the Catholic Church kind of set themselves up and marketed it was, as long as you ask for forgiveness, you're good. It doesn't matter how terrible of a life you've lived. If it's at the end of your life and you say, oh, I'm Christian now and I believe in Jesus, you're saved. I think a lot of that in certain ways can be very hypocritical. I think if you actually take that upon yourself and actually change in your heart and your soul and repent, I think anybody can be saved. But I think some people believe it as more of a crutch, being like, I'm just going to do it to check a box just in case this is true because I'll get in. I don't think it's that simple.
Well, and I think also if you look at it like this, I think it has a lot to do. Every one of us is born with human spirit. And so I think what is actually being passed along is this. If you are a fruitful person that has lived a very fulfilled, happy life where your existence has been very, very, very positive. It has filled you with happiness and all those things, that your spirit is so much stronger. And then once you pass away, you die, if your spirit is strong enough because you lived a very good life, not that you did everything perfect, not that you didn't make even very drastic, terrible mistakes, you killed someone or something like that, but in your heart and through your existence for your lifetime, if you are a very good, positive person who has really made their mark with people, I think that is what is added to whether you supposedly heaven as such, or even you going to a higher realm and stuff because of your spirit and stuff. I think that's what really guides that.
No one can live a perfect life. That's not possible. You can't be a perfect Christian. It doesn't exist. No one's perfect.
Right.
So, and that's the thing, is people also look at Christianity and like, well, you're supposed to be a pacifist. You're not supposed to fight. The violence is against that. It's like, Jesus literally told people to carry a fucking sword for self-defense. Like, there's not an issue with protecting yourself.
Even like when
in certain situations.
The Last Supper, Jesus knew he was going to die.
Yeah.
And he knew he was going to die.
He
very
sacrificed
gruesomely.
himself. That doesn't mean that he's telling us to be like,
yeah,
if someone's pulling a knife on you, just stand there and take it. Like, that is not what he meant at all.
So let me ask you this. If you could do just this one day, if I could give up my life for there never to be any more human suffering, or there never to be another baby that suffers, or that there would be no more war, there would be no more of the terrible entanglements that we have as a human race, if we could somewhat do a reset, push the button, a recheck, rather than to take and eliminate everyone, would you be willing to do that? Would you
100%.
Would you absolutely sacrifice
100%.
yourself for everyone?
Called us to be just like him, be one of his disciples. That's what he called us in for. So,
and that's the thing. Some people would say, like, well, wasn't Jesus' sacrifice supposed to fix that? No, he took away our sins. He's not fixing the world by him dying.
Right.
He gave us
basically
the ability.
did the reset.
He did. He literally and metaphorically and in the Bible became a sacrificial lamb, just like Old Testament.
Right.
You sacrificed an animal because they were supposed to absorb the uncleansed world, the sin. Jesus did that on a global scale. He was that lamb that took in all that death and destruction to give way for good and hope and God.
He sacrificed himself for us to be, so we could be forgiven.
Yeah. If there was a way for something like that to be possible, doesn't mean I want to die. But at the same time, if you told me right now my life could actually change existence in that 100%. Way,
absolutely,
I'd fucking do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would do it.
Yeah, for
I would
sure.
hug my family and it'd be done.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely see that.
And I think that's the thing that some people don't realize is, like, that's Jesus' sacrifice was also a physical statement and showing how much he loves us. Like, it wasn't just he was delusional and said, you can kill me, I'm not going to put up a fight. He's like, no, I'm doing this even for the people that's killing me. I'm doing this for the evil. I'm allowing this to happen for purpose. There's a reason behind this, and that was his story, was to show God's love, and that's what's fascinating about it. It's a really fun topic. I do like it. It's cool to talk about religion and break stuff down because I think there's so much to it. Even if you're not religious, I think it's amazing to have.
And see, even the conversations I've had with the two of you today, it always brings a different perspective to religion for me. Not that I am a person who does believe in God, that there is a higher power for sure. And so, and for some reason, I think that he did know every single one of us.
Yes,
for sure. And stuff. So we are his hand-picked, chosen few that got to have an existence and stuff. So, you know, every day we should feel lucky for what we have and that we can go out and appreciate it. For sure.
Gratitude is a lot, because you never know.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, I'm always thankful that I want the world to be a better place for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Same. And sadly, I don't think most people think about that anymore.
Sometimes I don't think they think about anything. Yeah. Or if they are, where they're thinking
it's the next minute. It's not the next generation or 10 years even.
Right.
It's sad. And I think part of that is just technology. I think part of that social media. I think it's a lot that's accumulated to some of these issues today. And I think part of it, I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I think we'll get through a lot of that kind of stuff. I think that's the thing. We're still at the beginning of this technological experiment. Like, we're still, even though we're a couple generations in for certain things, we're still at the very precipice of it as it still grows and develops, and we're still finding a lot of
possibly. I look at it two different ways.
Okay.
As technology comes about, it almost feels like to me that that our religious aspects and things like that get farther away. And I don't know why exactly I think that. I just think that, for example, when I was a little boy, I could go out. Now, wait a second. Just let me finish this part. Let me go. I used to go outside and I would play. Okay. Yep. I was outside most of the time. My friends, everyone I knew was outside at that time. Mm-hmm. Every day, if I'm out and about with some of our deliveries and I'm going through neighborhoods or whatever, I don't see any children out. You don't see children out, not even close. Well, I'm just saying that's a good point. But even children don't play the same way. And so what worries me about computers and is that I think it takes the human factor away from it, because we don't get the chance to socialize and everything
like we're doing right now.
Because we can sit down in a room, or we could sit in this room and, if we were young, and play with each other and play cars and our toys and all that. Slowly but surely, we are becoming behind closed doors. All this technology is a crutch for us to make our lives easier. Everything that's around us, the computers, the telephones, refrigeration, you name it, the house itself, everything is to make it easier and more convenient for us. And as technology goes on, I don't know if that is going. I think us sitting down, people sitting down in a room and talking, whether you are from different countries, different beliefs and all that, sitting down face to face and us talking, where I can physically touch Riley or you or whatever, is much different than us having the technology. The technology makes it easier for our lives, but it takes some of our humanity away a little, by little.
I think there is something to that, because some studies have literally been shown, like, our brains process physical movements in the face faster than almost anything else in the world. And there is something to the lack of communication through text message or even phone calls that you don't get and understand socially through face-to-face
just like a relationship. Like, everybody has different,
absolutely,
physical touch, or just like text messages, or just talking.
No, it's challenging, I think, as things develop. I think eventually some of the problems that have come up now that have been realized over the past 5-6 years are going to have solutions in the next 10. Doesn't mean there's not going to be more challenges and issues that come up. I literally heard a quote today where someone said, if you have no problems in your life, how do I make it that I have no problems in my life, or something along those lines. And the only people that have no problems in their life live in a cemetery.
Right.
If you have no problems, you're dead.
Right.
Life is all about having problems. If you don't have problems, you're not living. There's always going to be a problem. That's what pushes you to keep advancing. The problems are just going to move. It's just like the same thing. Is being rich and wealthy going to make my life happier and better? Most likely. Easier, but different. There's going to be different problems.
It just depends what you do with that.
Yeah, your problems are going to change. It's not going to be the same problems as I can't afford the nicer food, but you're going to have other problems pop up. They're just going to manifest. There's always problems. And I think that's one thing is people look at this and they're like, there's so many issues, they're not going away. Issues aren't going to go away. We're going to fix certain problems and challenges. Others are going to pop up. It's just like, oh, well, gas
you put one fire out to start another fire.
And it just keeps transitioning, even though it still keeps better and better. Even those problems are.
I guess that's what they call it. Why they call it humanity. Because or life itself. Because you can look at it like this. You can look at life where you're living your life, or you're viewing your life.
That's true.
Where you are physically going through the motions, but you're not actually involved in your life. You're not actually living your life and stuff. So hopefully people can figure better ways to do that. Be more productive, do all those things.
Well, I think we're probably getting close to the point of wrapping up. I just realized
Thank
we've
you.
almost been going for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm
It's always,
glad
when
you were
we
able to
sat
come on.
down, I told him you only got 30 minutes or whatever. But
I knew it was not.
we
gonna
can
end up that way.
easily, Bret and I, at least Bret and I, and Riley too, now that I've got to know Riley a little bit, we can easily sit down and we didn't even scratch the surface for hardly
so much so.
anything. Yeah.
I have to ask though, Riley, before we probably call this week's episode. Is there anything in particular, since you talked so highly of Brian after meeting him the first time and wanting him to come on? I mean, technically you did say that. Is there anything in particular before we call it that you would like to ask him about? About himself, about what we've talked about?
Absolutely.
Anything. I know him a lot better than you do.
You mean
so
just in
that's
life?
why.
Absolutely.
Just in general. Anything.
Anything
I'm just
you
curious
want to,
because
yes.
you mentioned, obviously, just being around him for the live stream, basically for the first time. That was about all the time you've really spent around him was mainly then, right? You obviously got.
I'm an
good
old
feeling.
soul. I do know that.
So this might not be just for me,
Okay.
but for everybody in the younger generation.
Sure.
What would you do if you could go back to your teenager years or mid-20s?
Well, people ask me that a lot. They'll ask me whether I would even go back. If you could go back, would you? And so on and so forth. And it's always the same answer for me. I always want to go back. I wish I was your age again.
Mm-hmm.
God, I wish. But
So is some of it to just experience it again, or would you want life to change? Are you
oh
fine with
no,
where
I
you
want my
are?
life to change.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't even get close to making.
Oh, I just,
My life did not turn out the way I thought it would when I was your age or even younger. Not that to say that it was bad. It was just different. I think what I
different
had,
expectations.
I had expectations of doing different things. And so as my life went through, it did not go the way that I thought it was going to.
It's true. But
I wish is that I could go back and I have all the knowledge I have now.
Well, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's everybody. I wish I could
No.
go back to 10 and say the same thing. Be like, hey, here's some information
Be
for
investing in Bitcoin.
you. Yeah, just random stuff. Like
no,
that.
not even so much that.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
course, it would be great to know who won Super Bowl, blah, 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 way before the Super Bowl got there and all
Yeah, put a bet on
that. We're
it.
not Back to the Future sort of thing.
So
But I think that I would like to go back because I have so much more to give life.
Well, that's fair.
And I think you guys, let me tell you this. Okay. And I thought about both of you. One of the things that I really appreciate about you, the two of you, is that you are much stronger individuals than I was at your age.
Really?
And I won't say, I'm not going to go in depth
'Cause
publicly
I'm kinda
about.
surprised by that, personally.
Not at all.
Really?
That's one of the reasons why I know my wife has asked me, why do you like to go hang out with these guys? And it's because you are giving me a different perspective on life because I have already experienced a lot of these things. It's great to see you not understand or know sometimes what direction to go or whatever, at least for Bret. And Bret and I have become really extraordinarily good friends. He knows that I always have good advice. What I say is a very relevant thing. I wish that when I was young, I listened to my grandfather when he told me, hey, you shouldn't do this or you should go about life this way or whatever. Yeah. Me, I was stupid. I didn't listen. And what all people younger than yourself, if you will listen and to your parents. Now,
There's
sometimes
a lot more
we
wisdom.
don't
Yeah.
agree with what, our parents, how we are at this moment in life with our parents, but especially the two of you, because I know a little bit about both of you, your different backgrounds and upbringings for both of you. Now, Riley, I don't know you nearly as well as I do Bret, but I have much bigger background over the last year, having met you and some of your family and so on. I respect you guys because you guys have a strong will. You if you want something, you seem to be able to go about and getting it. Not necessarily perfectly. Some people are always meant to be that they're going to always do the right thing. They're going to go, and if the right thing is to go to college, they're going to go to college. They're going to finish their degree. They're going to go and, you know, live a productive life or whatever. For me, I just wish that I could have been a more productive person. And I think you being strong people the way that you are, and a lot of your thoughts and things, that's going to help you later on in life. But you both need to remember this. Even though your parents are both very different and give you different advice, always listen. Always listen. You may not understand, and I didn't understand. But as I have gotten old and lived my life, I do understand exactly what they're saying, and I dismissed it. And I apologize to the people who tried to help me, because I dismissed all of it, and that was one of the stupidest things I ever did. You know, when they tell you, you know, to do it a certain way, hear what they're saying to you, because they're giving you good information, all based upon their experiences in their life.
Yeah, I think there is something to that.
So I actually saw, like, not a quote, but just like somebody said, like, always listen to your parents. Like, you might not agree, but it's their first time doing this too. Yeah. And that just, like, made me rethink.
And I think that is something that it's hard to come, like, because we're so close to even the reality of basically first becoming an adult, moving in that chapter of our lives where it's like you first start realizing when you're about 18 that your parents are just people. Right. They are really just older versions of you, and as a kid you idolize them, and so when you do see the faults, you get angry about it. In our reality, they're just a person, just the same as you. They're going to be
time doing it. It's not like they lived another life.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's their very first time, and
that's very true.
Yeah, when I saw that, I just actually made me rethink. I was like, yeah, that's true.
No, yeah, and sometimes I definitely got to self-correct, because there's times you forget those kind of things and
reel your self back in a little bit. And stuff.
Yeah, we're still young. We have that angst. We have that whatever
you do.
There. So it is hard sometimes to really step back and look at those kind of conversations.
Reflect for a moment every once in a while.
Especially in the moment. Sometimes it's hard and you miss it, and you afterwards you're like, damn it, like I should have maybe listened to this better, or I understand what where they were coming from.
Absolutely.
So I think that is true for a lot of people, but I have to admit though, when it comes to that and how everybody has their own experiences, another quote I literally listened to today was them talking about how, like, they come into a room and they respect everybody, because he's like, I realized that they are superior. Every single person in the world is superior to me in some form because of their 100%. Own life experiences. There's something they know they're better at than me, and I'm superior to them in something because of how I've lived my life. And I think that there is something to that where you can learn something from everybody. It doesn't matter who it is.
That's probably true. Even terrible, what we would consider terrible people.
There's something you can learn from them.
100%.
Like, and I think that's the issue when people look at, like, when it comes to stereotyping and labels, is you do that and it's like looking at it's like, don't judge a book by its cover. It's literally that. You look at the cover, you see it, you don't want to know more, you don't want to know what there is to offer in that person, and you move on because all you see is that cover, and that's all you get. That's all the information you get.
If that's what you're doing in your life, I can tell you right now, you are making a mistake.
You're making a mistake.
You are missing out probably
on some people.
Yes, the most interesting people that you will meet. You know, that's like, it seems like my wife and I are magnets to people sometimes, because they randomly come up to us, start talking or whatever. I don't know if they feel like they get an open vibe from us or whatever, but my wife and I have experienced that a lot. But I think a lot of that has to do with me, myself. My mom always said that there was never a person I met in my life that was a stranger to me. And I've told many countless people that were in authoritative positions above me or in management or whatever, I was like, I could talk to the president or Mahatma Gandhi. It doesn't make any difference. They're just a person.
That's true.
You know.
That is true.
And honestly, what you try to do is somehow be able to relate to that person one way or another, and that is your connection.
It's true. And I have to admit, before we close out today, when you were saying that about how you wish your life was different, I don't, because honestly, if things would have changed in your life, we probably would have never met.
That's a good point.
That is something that, I mean, life's journey isn't always what we think it's going to be, and it's always
that
a
is
struggle.
so very true.
And
it's
I
hard,
just saw a
but
video. It was like these two marbles,
there's always a reason.
and one was curved and up, and one was a straight path.
Yeah.
The one that was going down and up made it to the finish line faster.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't mean like you're gonna have rough patches.
Yeah, so you're gonna have your ups and downs, but you're good. That's a part of your journey.
Exactly.
That's how you're gonna learn. You're gonna come across and meet people for specific reasons, and you don't understand it.
Absolutely. And who knows? Even though I said that, maybe by being friends with these people, maybe somehow that'll be my contribution. So I don't know that.
Honestly, like that's the thing. I think people don't understand that even minuscule relationships that in the long term might be short, because you never know. Like let's say
that's true.
Let's say in 2 years I move to Mexico. I don't know.
Right.
And I never see you again, but you
Right.
still had probably way more of an impact on my life than you would probably ever understand. And especially us being so young and still malleable.
Absolutely.
That these connections are very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're important for me too. It reminds me. What does it remind me of? It reminds me of a time long ago. How about that?
Well, I think
For
that's
sure.
a good place to end it.
I think so, actually. Yeah.
Hey,
Ryan,
whatever
thank
you
you so
do,
much.
if you are out there, try to get along. Just give peace and love a chance.
That's how I always end it. We'll see you guys all next week. I hope you did enjoy this episode.
Yeah.
If you think there's anybody that would want to listen to it, send it their way.
Yes,
Subscribe and like. And we'll see you guys all next week.
We'll come up with something different next time. I know. We always do.
Peace out, everybody.